Hi, my name is Logan Schlutz with Estate Professionals, and I'm a realtor in Boulder, Colorado. Today I want to help answer a question that a lot of sellers have and a lot of new agents have, and that is, how do you price a home correctly? So today I've chosen a home kind of at random here in Longmont, Colorado. And this home I've chosen is 811 South Broad Street. This is not a home that I have listed, but it is a home that has been on the market for 60 days. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how would I price this home correctly, and also just kind of talk a little bit about what's happened with this home. So let's get started. I'm going to pull up the listing here so that you have it. And then I want to talk first, before I go too far, about three things that an appraiser is going to consider when they price your home. Now, why is the appraiser's opinion of value important? And that's because 80% of buyers get loans. So what we don't want, if we don't want to overprice the home, if we overprice the home and it just sits there, normally that's sending messages, especially in a hot market, to buyers that something is wrong with the home. So the longer it sits there, the worse, the more stigmatized it becomes. The other thing that we want to avoid is overpricing the home, because if we go under contract, in an 80% chance that we're going to go under contract with a buyer who's getting a loan, we don't want to go 3 weeks through this process and have the appraiser's opinion of value come in for less than what the contract price is. When the appraiser's opinion of value comes in less than the contract price, the buyer's going to object, and they're going to ask you as a seller to reduce the purchase price. So we'd want to avoid that wherever is humanly possible, because unless we have asked the buyer to cover the appraisal gap up front when they signed the offer, the likelihood that they're going to be willing to bring their own cash to bridge that difference is not very likely. Of course, there's always stories and exceptions out there to any rule, and there are essentially no rules in real estate. But that's a pretty good one. If a buyer doesn't think they have to pay the difference, they're probably not going to be willing to do it. All right, so an appraiser is going to consider three things, primary things. The first one is going to be the square footage of the home. The bigger the home, typically the more expensive the home. That makes sense. But the other thing is the location. So we don't want to compare homes in Longmont to Boulder. For those of you not from Colorado, those are two towns about 20 minutes apart with pretty drastic differences in prices. We also wouldn't really want to compare a home probably in West Longmont to east side of Longmont, because homes in West Longmont are quite a bit more expensive, have better school districts, are closer to open space and trails. On the east side of Longmont, we have less trails. They're closer to Weld County. Some homes in East Longmont are actually in Weld County. School districts aren't as good, and people aren't willing to pay as much money in East Longmont as they are in West Longmont. The third thing is timing. So every year there's typically ups and downs in the real estate cycle. So in Colorado, we'll typically see homes sell for the most dollars per square foot or the highest price in June, and then prices tend to taper off typically throughout the rest of the year. So we want to be kind of careful about looking at other homes that have sold, considering how big they were, what the location was, and we also want to choose, if possible, homes that have sold more recently as opposed to 1 year ago. And we certainly wouldn't want to pick a home, and an appraiser probably wouldn't be allowed to choose a home as a comparable if it had sold 2 years ago. Typically, as far as the appraisal is concerned, we can go back 1 year in time at the maximum. Right now, as of September 2022, most appraisers are going back 3 months in time if possible. All right, so those are kind of the fundamentals, so let's get started. So I have here the public records for this home at 811 South Broad Street. What's cool about the public records is that they're going to give us some information about the home, which is going to be very useful to us. So the first piece here is going to be this gross area square footage. The gross area square footage is going to be the total square footage of the home, including the garage. So here we got 2,592. The garage is not considered to be livable square footage, and presumably it never will be livable square footage as compared to something like an unfinished basement, which you might finish in the future. A garage, the assumption is that it will never be finished, so we don't count it. It does, of course, affect the value of the home, but that would be a separate adjustment that we do on the side, and it doesn't come into our square footage factor. So I'm going to say 2,592 square feet is the gross, and luckily the public records here gives us the garage square footage at 460 square feet. So if we subtract 460 square feet from 2,592, I'm just going to grab my calculator. So 2,592 minus 460 square feet. An average garage is 400 square feet in Longmont, so it's a slightly oversized. Gives you a little bit of room for storage. That's 2,132 total square feet. Okay? So 2,132 total square feet. Now, an appraiser is typically only going to compare this home to other homes that were similar in size. And what does similar in size mean for an appraiser? It means looking at homes that are plus or minus 20% the total square footage. So now I'm going to do that calculation here. So let me come here. So the first thing that we're comparing is the square footage. So I got 2,132, I think it was. Yep. 2,132. And for the range, we're going to compare 2,132 times 0.8, because that's going to give us plus or minus 20%. That's going to give us the minus side, a home that's 80% the size of this home. And that gives me 1,849.6. I'm just going to round it to 1,849. I realize that's not how you're supposed to round things, but I would prefer to be encompass a little bit more options for myself, because in a limited inventory market, there's not tons of options out there. 1 square feet probably isn't going to make a huge difference, but it might. All right, so I'm going to do the other side. So 2,132 times 1.2 to get this upper end, the plus 20%. And that gives me 2,558.4. So I'm just going to round this up to get a clean number at 2,560. All right. The other thing that the public records will tell us here is how much of this basement is finished, right? So we know that it's a ranch style home because it tells us here someplace. Maybe you'll see it. Here it is, a ranch style home. So, and it tells us that 1,607 square feet of this home is finished. So it also tells us here the above ground square footage. So we presume that everything on the main level is finished. If there's going to be unfinished square footage, it's more than likely in the basement, right? So, so if we were going to calculate the size of the basement here, we would do this 2,132 less the above grade square footage, so 1,107, and that's going to give me a basement area of 1,025. And then I can also take this 2,132 and subtract the finished square footage, 1,607, to find out how much of the basement is unfinished. So I'm going to do that real quick just so I have the information. So 2,132 minus 1,607 finished square feet is going to give me probably 525 unfinished square feet in the basement. And since I know the size of the basement, 1,025, I can subtract the unfinished square footage in the basement to find the finished square footage, which is of course 500. And now I've got the total, add these two together, and that would give me that basement square footage. All right, so I'm gonna need that later, but for now I just need this range. The second thing that we talked about was location. And I apologize for my handwriting, but I'm not very good at writing on this iPad. But I had mentioned earlier that we don't want to compare a home that's in Longmont to a home that's in Boulder. And we probably wouldn't want to compare a home that's in West Longmont to a home that's in East Longmont. So one of the things that we're going to do is we're only going to compare this home to homes that are within a 1 mile radius of this property. That's the same way that an appraiser is going to look at homes. Now, if you live in an urban market like Denver, Boston, New York, Los Angeles, if you go within a 1 mile radius of that property, you're probably getting homes that are drastically different from your subject property. A lot can change in a 1 mile radius when you're in the city. But when we're in kind of a metro or in a suburban area like this, we're not going to see that many changes. However, in this case, I'm still going to start at 1/2 mile radius, see what kind of comparable properties I can get. And then if I can't find what I'm looking for, I might extend that out to a 1 mile radius. Just keep in mind that from time to time, if you leave, for example, a really good school district and move to a subpar school district, then you might need to make an adjustment. Well, you do need to make an adjustment for that when you're coming up with your price, because the location changes things. So I'm going in here to my into my MLS search, and I've gone in here to the map search, went to the subject property, and I did a 1/2 mile radius. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm only going to say, only give me results that are ranch style properties. And the reason for this is because you don't want to compare a ranch style home to a 2-story or a 2-story to a 3-story, because there are basically 4 components or 3 major components really, that go into play when you're looking at the dollars per square foot of a home. So the first one is, like, if you have a 1,000 square foot home on a 1 acre piece of land, and you're comparing that to another 1,000 square foot home on a 1/4 acre piece of land, of course the home that is on the 1 acre land is going to be more expensive. But if you're only looking at dollars per square foot, that first home is going to appear more expensive in terms of dollars per square foot for the actual house, even though that figure is really incorporating into the value of the land. The other thing is, with a ranch style home, you've got typically a bigger foundation. Your foundation is laid out over more square footage, and you have a bigger roof line. And those are the 2 most expensive pieces when you're building a home. At least in Colorado, you got your engineering fees, and your foundation are expensive than your roof line. On a 2-story home, it's a little bit cheaper to build, actually, and that's why you see a lot of our new construction tends to be 2-story pieces of property on small lots, right? Because they're trying to keep their expenses down and make more profit. But the 2-story homes are a little bit cheaper because you can use that same foundation and have a smaller roof line if you're building up. So if we're comparing ranch style homes to 2-story homes, then the comparison isn't really fair. The other piece of that too is ranch style homes apply to a much greater segment of the population, and they're more desirable. A 2-story home would be really hard for a 90-year-old person or an 80 or 70-year-old person possibly to live in, because they might not be able to do stairs. But a ranch style home could work for a first-time home buyer, maybe in their 20s or 30s, but it could also work for somebody in their 60s, 70s, 80s, possibly even in their 90s, right? So it just has a greater appeal to more potential buyers, and we have more potential buyers. There's a greater likelihood that somebody is willing to pay us more for the property. Because at the end of the day, even though we go through all of these calculations and we try use all of our tricks to determine what is the true value of this property, the only true value of the property is what somebody is willing to pay for it. And the more buyers that we have in our pool, the greater chance there is that somebody is willing to give you a better price for their home. So I've selected in here that we're only going to compare this ranch style home to other ranch style homes. And I've gone in here and I've said we're only comparing it to like detached homes that have yards. And I've gone to coming soon to sold. I want to see the homes that are for sale just to see if they have any activity. I want to see if there's any similar homes that are under contract. And I want to see the homes that have sold. So I'm going to go here, and instead of going to April 1st, I'm just going to go back 3 months, because this year we've had a lot of changes on our market. We started the year off at a 3% interest rate, and rates were rising quickly. Buyers were very motivated to get into homes and lock in their interest rates, and sometimes were willing to pay very high premiums for a home in order to lock in that lower interest rate. and a lot more buyers qualified for homes. So we had a greater pool of buyers. But as we went further into the year, prices kind of peaked in June, which is typical for Colorado. And then they usually start to come down. This year we've seen a deceleration just a little bit faster than normal. Our market as of September is still doing quite good. But we have seen a little bit of a deceleration in prices. And that deceleration in prices, of course, means that it would be hard to compare a home that's on the market right now to a home that was in the market in April. The other thing is interest rates are a lot higher right now too, right? So we have fewer buyers that can afford to buy a home because they might not be able to qualify at a 7% interest rate versus May when interest rates were 5%. So that's another thing, is our pool of buyers has also shrunk. And then another thing that's shrunk in the buyer pool is that we're going into the fall. So a lot of the most motivated buyers, the people that were most eager and excited to get into a home, have already done so. All right, so I'm just going to go back. So we're at September right now. So let's say September, August. Let's go to the July 1st and let's just see if we get anything. All right, so we do get 6 options here. This first one we can see is a home that's all boarded up. No photos, and it says it needs significant renovation. So I'm going to take that one out. And now I'm left with 5 here. So that sold then, let's see, we got 1 that's active. All right, and now typically what I want to do is I want to choose the top 3 properties that I think are most comparable to my property. I've already got ones that are similar in location, similar in size, the same ranch style. And I just kind of want to look at photos to make sure that more or less the properties I'm comparing are similar. So not like that first one, which needed significant renovations. So, and actually I've got 3 sold and 1 active. So I'm going to use the 3 that have sold. But so here's a property that I'm doing the comparison for. So we can see I got number 2, probably, let's see, in the beginning here, it looks like we got some type of maybe hardwood flooring in here. Kitchen looks like maybe they painted the cabinets. We got some stainless steel appliances. Just want to make sure. Okay, looks like maybe we got some newer windows in here. Carpet looks like it's in okay condition. The bathroom looks all right. We got a kitchenette in the basement. Not supposed to have a gas fireplace in the basement in Boulder County, so it's probably a code violation. Some new flooring or some type of laminate flooring down here, probably a double sink, full bathroom, a laundry room, decent yard, ranch style home. One thing I want to point out, this home's been on the market for 59 days, and I can see in the history. So they actually withdrew this home today and just relisted it today. So it's been on the market for 59 days, and the goal is to try to figure out, is the home priced right? And could that be a reason why it hasn't sold yet? All right. So now we kind of got now we'll take a look at the subject property, the one that we're comparing it to. So the cabinets are a little bit dated. Got that number 2 red oak in here. They have the property staged, which is helpful. Looks like they've got some vinyl windows in here, which were probably replaced at some point. Double sink, full bathroom, and then a partially finished basement, nicely landscaped yard, privacy fence, some garden boxes. So, nice property. Here's another one on 800 James Street. So they got some laminate in here, baseboard heating, so no AC. Looks like these windows are the original aluminum windows. We have stainless steel appliances, which is good. Nice backsplash in here, laminate countertops. And then we got a red oak in here, it looks like. So we got a couple types of flooring in this house. Pictures are okay, but not probably professional. Basement with a laundry area, brick exterior house. And then we got Basement, again, it's one of my pet peeves when they put the pictures out of order and you're jumping around from different parts of the house. So here's one on 36 Gay Street, or Gay Drive. So it's got nice curb appeal here, some established trees. They got maybe an older carpet, looks like. The property's been staged. Looks like newer windows. Some type of flooring, which I can't quite tell what that is. Looks like it might be a laminate. So, solid oak cabinets. Nice sliding door from the master. That carpet is a little bit older. So they got some paneling in the basement, kind of this older push tile roof down there. It looks like this quality of workmanship on this bathroom might not be the best, but it is almost all finished down here, and they got a lower level laundry room, and they back to open space. So that's a big one, or they got some type of park or something behind there. So that's a feature that people really like and are willing to pay a premium for, and appraisers will give that some value as well. All right, so now here we got this other one on 841 Broad Street. So this is on the same street as the subject property that we're selling. Looks like from the color of the roof, it might be an older roof, but it's a brick exterior, single car garage, nicely landscaped, some established trees. Maybe like a red oak flooring in here as well, it looks like. Nice backsplash, nice cabinets. They got some stainless steel appliances, nice light fixtures. Updated can lighting in here. Looks like newer windows. Property's been staged as well. So basement's all finished. And then we got a 3/4 bath in here. Nice yard in good shape. And then they got a sunroom, maybe seen better days, but it's still a nice feature to have a sunroom, which looks like some of the other properties didn't have. Okay. So I'm going to sort these here by what's on the market. Let's see, 800 James. We'll just take a quick look through this one because I don't think we... Oh yeah, this is that first one that we looked at. Okay. So 800 James Street is for sale, and it's been on the market for 21 days. I'm going to look here and see if they've had any price reductions, which they did. So they had a price reduction from $539 to $524,700 after 17 days on the market. And then we had this one that sold on 9/7, so that would have gone under contract in August. And it had been on the market for 27 days, so they listed it sometime in July. And then this one on Gay Street went under contract in 4 days. They had it listed sometime in July. This one had a small bidding war. And this one went under contract in 12 days and sold in August. So it would have gone under contract sometime in late June, early July. All right. So the next step for me is I'm going to take all of this information and I'm going to stick it into this Excel sheet that I made that's going to calculate the marginal square footage. So how do we calculate the marginal square footage? And that's going to be, we take the square footage, the dollars per square foot of the subject property, and then we're going to take the dollars per square foot for the 3 comparable properties, and then we take the average of that and divide it by 3. That's going to basically take out the premium for the lot, the foundation, and the roof line. All right. So we go through, and what I would basically do is I would go in here and I would type in these addresses. So I'm going to do the ones that have sold because those are what the market showed us people were willing to pay. So just going to write these down. So we got 1009 South Pratt. I got 36 South Gay Drive and 841 South Brass. So if I were to go in here, I would enter the addresses so I know and other people know which comparables I've used. I'm going to put the age of the home in here, so 1967. And I do this because if I'm comparing a home that's 50 years newer than the other home, I probably need to make some type of adjustment for that. And then I'm going to put the date of sale in here so that I know when the home sold, so I can adjust for market conditions. So if the home has gone up in value since then, the market's going up, I need to make an adjustment for that. And if the market's going down, then I would need to make an adjustment for that as well. And of course, if the market hasn't changed, then we would do that. This days to offer is going to give me an idea of how long did it take for this home to sell. So I think since everybody doesn't have access to this exact Excel sheet that I've got, I probably won't spend the time to go through and enter all the information exactly in here, but what I do want to kind of go back is take a look at these sales prices in here. So we're at 503, and then we're at 537 sold price, and this one is 552. So after I put these in here, what is going to happen is it's going to give me an adjustment here for the square footage. I have an appreciation adjustment, and I'm going to make sure that these are all at 0 because in the last 3 months, homes haven't really gone up. They've basically stayed the same. And then I've got these unique adjustments. So this is kind of the next kind of component that I want to talk about. When I was preparing this exact CMA, I was doing this one for a home that only had 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. So when I was comparing it to other homes, some of those had 1 bedroom in one case, and most of the homes had 3 bedrooms. Usually your bedroom count is going to kind of get washed out in your square footage. So you usually aren't going to make an adjustment for bedroom count unless you're coming from something that's maybe a 2 bedroom versus a 3 bedroom, because there's not a huge market out there for people trying to buy 2 bedroom single family homes. You see that more in condos or townhomes. So in a single family home, I do think that you need to make some type of adjustment for that. Other things that you might make adjustments for are location again. So if one of the properties that we looked at back to a park or open space, so that's something that we would want to make an adjustment for. If you're backing to a park with open space, it's probably like a 3 to 5% adjustment. If you have a property that has really nice views, that might be an adjustment that you make as well. So if you have views of the mountains, unobstructed views of the mountains, let's say, then that could be anywhere from a 5 to a 15% adjustment. It kind of depends where you're at. Longmont, we're probably going to see somewhere between 5 to 10%. If we're in Boulder, it could be as high as 15. Maybe if you're in South Boulder and you have unobstructed views at a Flatirons, then we would do a 15% adjustment. Landscaping might be another adjustment that you make. So comparing a property that has no yard, no sprinkler system to a home that has a beautifully manicured yard with drip systems and raised garden beds, that's going to give you you're going to make an adjustment in there as well. And then I have one in here from another property I did for new roof, HVAC, new AC, new hot water heater. Those are all things that you'd make an adjustment for too. So if your subject property has brand new roof, brand new furnace, brand new air conditioning, but the other properties that you're comparing it to doesn't have that, then you would want to go through and make an adjustment for those items as well. So in this case, I made a $25,000 adjustment for those items because this property that I had been comparing it to didn't have any of those things. In fact, they're quite old. And what's a way that your realtor can check on this stuff? Let me show you here. So sometimes the properties on the MLS are going to have these documents tabs, even for properties that have sold. And you'll be able to pull up, or your realtor will be able to pull up the seller's property disclosure. And then sometimes what I do is I just simply read through this to kind of get an idea of what the condition of the property was. So here I can see at least their clothes dryer is 4 years old, disposal 6 years old, oven range 3 years old. Let's see, they got a heating system, was only 6 years old, and it's a heel furnace, and they got a 6-year-old heel AC. Sometimes they have the age of the roof in here as well. Sometimes there's even a pre-inspection, so I can read through all of that and really get an idea of how good of condition was this home in, because photos often lie. The other thing that you can do too is you can call these listing agents. The realtor will have access to this, and I think the public should be able to find this information as well. So I can see, well, Noel Fleming sold this house here on 1009 South Pratt Parkway, and I could call him to ask about the condition of the property. Other places that I can look for this information would be here in the listing comments. So I would read through this and say, all right, 5 bedroom, 2 bath, fully fenced lot, hardwood throughout the main level, jetted tub, newer roof and gutters, fresh paint throughout, blah, blah, blah. So that at least gives me an idea that the roof was new, which I didn't know from the seller's property disclosure. I could come down here and look as well at the broker's remarks and see if I can find any special information that might help me know whether there was a lot of interest in this home or not. And you could see maybe the condition of the property too, depending on what's in here. So here I can see the buyer's loan fell through and the buyers are currently seeking a hard money loan. They have a 24-hour first right of refusal. And the contract will terminate. Offers are highly encouraged. Please call the listing agent with any questions. We can close quickly, blah, blah, blah. So now I've got some information in here which is helpful to me as well, at least knowing what circumstances kind of surround the property. So what I'll do is go back through and just kind of make adjustments for all of those. Keep in mind that if the subject property is the home that we're trying to price, the comparable properties are the other homes that have sold. So if the other homes were nicer than ours, then if the other homes were nicer than ours, let me give an example. So if the other home had a new roof, but my property did not, and I want to make a $10,000 adjustment for that, then I'm going to subtract that $10,000 from these comparables. So here you can see, in this case, I did a room count because this one had 3 bedrooms and my property only had 2. So I took off $10,000. I'm kind of knocking down that better feature to be at the same level as the property that I'm trying to price. However, because my property had a new roof and a new HVAC and all this stuff, which the other properties did not have, I'm adding that to the value of the comparable property that didn't have that, to kind of bring it up to the level of the property that I'm trying to price. And this is why it's really important to try to pick 3 comparable sales that meet the appraiser's criteria, which are as most similar as possible to your home. Because if you have the more adjustments that you have to make, the more opinion there is in it. And then the more opinion there is, there's just more room for discrepancy or possibly for you to be wrong or have an appraisal problem later. So you can kind of see. The other thing that you might do is a garage adjustment. So if I'm comparing my property to another property that has maybe a 2-car garage on the other property and my property only has a 1-car garage, it's probably about a $12,000 adjustment. Bathrooms, depending, so this one originally this one had a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. Mine was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath in this other example I was doing. So I took $15,000 off. Usually the value of a bathroom is probably somewhere between $10,000 to $15,000, depending on whether it's a full bathroom or a half bathroom. So that's kind of the breakdown on how you're going to make those unique adjustments. Every property is a little bit different, and I think it takes a lot of expertise in your local market of knowing what buyers are willing to pay a premium for. Oftentimes cosmetic things like updated kitchens and bathrooms are going to bring you the biggest return because buyers are willing to pay the most money for those things. Furnaces and roofs are really important, but a lot of times buyers don't think about those things, or the realtor doesn't really know how to look for those things until it comes up on the inspection. So if you have a property that has a new roof, it has a new furnace, it has a new AC, a really good investment on your realtor's part would be to order a pre-inspection so that when you're showing the property to prospective buyers, you can actually give them a copy of that pre-inspection and they feel more safe about moving forward with your property because they know all of that information up front, and you might be able to get them to pay more money for it because now they know about it and they're not just discovering it later as an afterthought on the inspection. So in this Excel sheet, then you'll have these unique adjustments, and then finally this is going to kind of give me a breakdown in price. On this one, you can see that we had lots of kind of variables and prices here. We went from like $389 to $378, and down here we had $386. All of these unique adjustments are usually going to give you a small range, right? And then depending on what's going on with your market, might give you an idea where along this range that you want to price your home. So that in a nutshell is the sort of the quick version of the methodology that an appraiser is going to use to help price a home. I think it's a very good starting point in a conversation where with a seller, or for new agents when you're talking to your sellers about how to price a home correctly. But of course, at the end of the day, what you list the home for is always going to be up to the seller. And that's just the seller's choice. And there's pros and cons sometimes to pricing homes higher. But I would just encourage you to at least have an idea of what you think the comps and the process that an appraiser is going to use, because you don't want to go 3 weeks through your transaction and then run into that problem. It's just something that no seller likes to deal with. If I go back to this home, we can kind of see that more or less this home was probably priced right. So the question is still, why is it not selling? Because it looks like they got nice photographs, and it looks like it was staged nicely, and they even got twilight photos in here. So what I'm going to look at now is, if you look at the history of this home, it's been on the market for about 60 days. But 515, based off of what's going on in our market right now, seems like that's probably a price at which it should have sold. But we can see here they started at 560. And then almost immediately, 8 days later, within a week, they did a $11,000 price reduction. And then they went from 549 in another month down to 535. And then they went from 535 to 515, like another 2 weeks later. Then today they withdrew the home from the market and they relisted it so that it shows that it only has 1 day on the market, at least on the MLS. Zillow and Realtor.com, those places are going to pick it up. So we know that the reality is they probably had just overpriced the home in the beginning. And I think that's something that you're seeing a lot of right now, is people are pricing homes based off of their June and May highs. And then they're coming to this reality that the market has changed a little bit. Interest rates have gone up significantly. And most years, June is our peak, and then prices do come down a little bit. That's because later in the summertime, buyers have more options, and the most serious buyers have already purchased. Especially this year, the most serious buyers already purchased earlier in the spring if they could, because they wanted to lock in those low interest rates, and sometimes they were willing to pay a premium. So comparing homes right now at the end of September to homes that had sold in June is probably not a very good strategy. So more or less, that would probably be the history, my assessment of this property. It looks like it's probably priced about right now, but a lot of buyers probably have concerns when they look at that home because they see it spent 60 days on the market. And usually the buyer doesn't see the whole price history. They just see the price that it was listed at. So if they see even that it's listed at a reasonable price, then they look, and they see the home's been on the market for 60 days. And a lot of buyers' thought is that there's got to be something wrong with the home. One final piece to consider when you're pricing a home is your competition. So again, the home is only worth, at the end of the day, what a buyer is willing to pay you for the home. So what I always like to do, especially if there's a home that's really hard to compare, is I like to compare that particular home to other options that are available on the market. So what I would do here is I'd say, well, if I'm a buyer looking in Longmont around that 515 price point, then I'm going to look at active coming soon and active first right homes. I'm going to take this off market date off, and I'm going to take the square footage out. And I'm going to say, maybe I'm looking at a price point between 480 to 550, let's say. Oh, I got my map thing in here still, so let me delete that. I got 11 homes I could choose from. So now what I would just want to look at when I'm determining, is this property going to sell? I would look through these properties and consider their size, condition, and location. And think to myself, if I was a buyer, which one of these homes would I buy? If it's 811 South Bross, then that's a good sign. But if I'm looking at it and say, oof, there's a couple other properties that I think are stiff competition because they look nicer, or maybe they're about the same size but in a way better location, or they've got better views, or they back to parks or schools or something desirable, then you need to consider that in your pricing, because typically homes will always be coming on the market. So sometimes I think we get trapped in this idea of say, well, when that one sells, will be the next best one. Well, the reality is usually that one will sell, but then another one will come on the market. So it's not like you're moving your way up in line until you get sold. A lot of times you just stay stagnant. So you do have to consider what the competition is doing. And when there's a lot of fear in the market, like there is right now, there are oftentimes sellers that are underpricing their home so that they can get it sold faster. So I hope that helps kind of give you some perspective on what realtors, what buyers, and what most importantly, what appraisers are considering when they're determining the value of your home. But always remember, it's just an opinion of value. There are pros and cons to this methodology, but unfortunately for 80% of buyers out there that have loans, it's kind of the methodology that we're stuck with. So it's something to at least understand, consider, and definitely consider when you're pricing your home. Thanks again. My name is Logan Schlutz with Estate Professionals. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'm always available. My contact information will be below.